Well, this video that we're going to be doing together as a watercolor demonstration is about Mexico and these beautiful bikes and just the details in the walls that I found when I was there in Cosumel. And so we're going to work with trying to keep the whites, trying to get more of the shadows, and seeing how we can get those three bikes to really reflect as that they have some depth in there. And so that's why I'm going to take you on the journey today, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. Okay, welcome again to our latest demonstration on our bikes and beautiful wall activity in Mexico. This was taken in Cozumel, near Cancun, when I was there on a trip a couple of years ago. So what I love about this is the fact that there is such, let's bring it up here a little bit more so that you can see, hopefully it's focusing. I just love the idea of all these lines, the reflection off the telephone pole, the reflection off the electric wires, and there are some beautiful, beautiful shadows here with the bikes. I only thought there was one bike, and it turns out like there's three wheels there, so there are three bikes all attached together with this chain. The bikes alone could be a great subject too. So what we're going to try and do here is we will be looking at how we can get some of this wonderful roughed in lettering, and to get some of this what they call salitre, I believe it is, where the paint starts to peel away because the limestone within the cement foundation starts to creep in with water. So we want some of these beautiful effects without losing all the whites. We also want this beautiful door here that we can get in some details. And then we want some nice darks and this really nice, it's not really that gray, it's more of a brownish tone rather than gray for the sidewalk. And why I'm holding this candle here is one of the things that you can use to help you rather than use masking fluid is if you take the candle wax and just rub it into the areas where you don't want the actual paint to be, and unfortunately I've got a little bit too much dark here with the nip of the candle, but you can put a little bit of candle wax in there to get that stressed look that we're looking for here, where then we don't want the paint to go on, but we also just want it to look like the paint's peeling. And so you can use a candle. You could also use a wax crayon, and I don't know where my wax crayon is. So I could even do it here a little bit right along this area here and just pop in a little bit of wax, and you'll see that the paint will resist that area. So I thought that would be an interesting thing because I don't think we've had a chance to really touch on that kind of process. Now with the Coca-Cola, it is actually quite light. It's not really white. And the Coca-Cola bottle, well, we can leave it white because there's no problem. We don't have to mask that in. Here is really white. Here is a bit white. And the rest, well, we can work on that because there's even a little bit of white here. Why don't we do that? Why don't we wax that in here? Right along here. Okay. And there's a little bit of some burnt sienna or raw sienna here. And we're going to stick to very simple colors, really. About 4 colors, to be honest. So what I'd like to do first, I've got my mixing tray here. We are not going to do any kind of overall wash. We're going to work with what we have and maybe drop in a few areas. But the biggest thing I would say to start with is a little bit of permanent rose. I'm just looking for my right brush here. And we're going to try and do this is what I would like to try. Really, really light for any of the other washes or anything that we have to do. And only the bike as being the darker feature, which we will use a smaller brush for. And the rest, except for okay, that's the other dark feature, would be the door and the telephone pole. Okay. So I'm putting some water in my tray, and I'm putting very little permanent rose. And I want to show you how little it is. Let me just have a look here. So that it's, well, that's really little. Okay, there, that's all I want. Very, very light. So that's going to be our first layer where the Coca-Cola is, okay? So the idea here is by using our pen and ink first, we're going to have a really good outline of everything. And then we're just going to pop in some really light washes and maybe some shadows. Now I could go over, I'm just thinking of this, I could have gone straight over the telephone pole because that's not an issue. But I'm going to go around the telephone pole. And now we're going to see if you can even see what happens when the color goes over that area of the waxed. So there's a little bit here between the bike, not much. There's a little bit down on the wall in between here and the chassis of the bike. Here you don't even see the color in there because it does extend a little bit over to the left here. So I'll drop in just a bit more color in there. Okay, so back over here, it's actually kind of a mixed bag of grayish and pink. So we'll just pop in just a little bit over here like that. Finish the Coca-Cola right over the Coca-Cola. Okay, so that's our first layer. While this is drying here, and I think I got everything, looks like it, I'm going to take that same amount, maybe a little bit more, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put in, well, that's a bit too dark. I'm going to put in my lettering. And I didn't actually, so I'm just going to lightly put, I should actually have a couple of letters here, but I don't. So I'll just leave that little bit in there. Done. Now, I can go back eventually and do a little bit more and I'll show you. Because I'm seeing here that there's a little bit of darker reflection up here. So now I'm going to just darken my permanent rose just a little bit more. And I'm just going to drop in a little bit more of a dry brush. Okay, a little bit more here, a little bit down here, underneath the Coke bottle. It appears that we're going to be dealing with this shadow, so we'll just pop it in here. A little bit more here, definitely under the Coca-Cola. So let's add a little bit more up above it here, just above the lettering up here. A little bit in between the lettering. Try to look a little bit more down here. Okay, and then definitely in here, this area here, a little bit down here, and then we have some other stuff to deal with around there. Let's put a little bit in there. I do see it a little bit in here, behind the tire there, but I don't really see it. This is all shadow in here. Okay, what I was talking about with the lettering is I could go in with a little bit more for the lettering and just pop in some bits of color because it seems like the color is still on the edges of the lettering, but not necessarily. And this is all dry brushing with the tip of my brush. And so I could just pop in just a little bit more where I made those little marks. Okay, pretty much that's it for the pink. Maybe a little bit here, just a bit more to, because I don't really see a lot here. Maybe a little bit more in here. I'm going to add just a bit more dry brushing up here. Okay, that's, you see a little bit more in there? I keep saying that's it and then I go back to it. Okay, all right, that's it. So now let's work on our brown. Now, I really like the burnt orange for the brown because I can take just a little bit of my ultramarine blue and then just brown it up nicely for that wonderful door. So let's start with the door. Now, on the side here's some shadow, and there's shadow just above here too, so I can go straight up on top there and then bring the color down. And this is where I want you to really try and focus on getting a really clean edge. And you see, that's the wax. That's the wax there. Oh, and watch that you're not hitting too much of the other wet area of the coconut, oh, I can't even talk, the Coca-Cola bottle. Okay, so that's our first part. And coming in here. This is more about really watching how we leave our whites and stuff and working on these lovely shades that are there. Okay, because we're going to have really a lot of shade in this door. It's a lot darker than what we're seeing here. Now the basket you can hardly see, so I am going to paint right through the basket, except for the area where there's some highlights right along here. There's something in the basket at that point, and there's some just reflection, and there's some reflection of the material around the bike handles. Okay, and now just watch around the bike handles, because it's starting to get dry. Comes behind the bike and comes down here. And all of this is in shadow. Okay. The chassis of the bike, I've got to make sure I don't... I think I got it. And then in behind here, behind the wheel too. Now, I do see a bit of reflection, so let's see here. I'll try and keep it that... I should have put some wax on there. Alright, that's the first layer of the brown. We're going to let that dry. And we can do the same thing with the telephone pole, just make it a little darker. So more ultramarine blue in there to get it a much darker brown. Here we go. And I'm just trying to see here, based on the picture I've got there, I've got a lot of reflection happening on there, so I don't know if there is. There's a little piece that I marked here, like a little lift off a little bit. Okay. That is our first layer. So now I'd like to come back in with that same coloring that I had, a little bit more on the orangey brownish side. Just for now. Let's take that and make that shadow in there so it's darker. And then that shadow seems to come down right down here and in between here. And across here too. Actually, it seems to be all the way across here, right down here. And there's a special kind of a shadow that crosses over here. But there's definitely a shadow all the way along there, maybe even darker. Because you can hardly see it between the bike. And then there's shadow in between the door areas here. There's like 2 levels of panels and then more shadow in between here. And I'm trying to look if there was really any shadow along here. Not really necessarily. Okay, let's put in a little bit more dark. So just with more ultramarine blue, just dropping in some ultramarine blue in here. And definitely up here. Whoops, careful. And then coming down here. Don't want it as dark right now because we want to keep the focus on the dark on the bike. We can always come back in and add more if we need to. I know there's some kind of streaks and stuff. Okay. I'm going to make it a little darker in here. Now I can go across around because, again, the spokes are in black. There's one spoke, the big one, there's some shine to it, and there's a shine to it there. We can always add some gel pen in if we can't find it. Okay. I'm going to go in one more layer with a little bit more of the burnt orange here. Okay, let's tilt that a bit and bring it down a bit. You may have not seen everything. I was hoping you did. Alright, so now back to our telephone pole, which has really gotten quite light. So I'm just adding more burnt orange, and you can do that with the burnt sienna too, don't worry. You can, or if you have burnt umber or sepia, that color will work too. Let's get that darker. Okay. So now we're going to work, I would like to work on the sidewalk here, which is just going to be, we're going to gray this up by putting in more ultramarine blue, and we're going to get a warmer gray if I can. That's still too brown. Okay, so here's our gray. I can warm it up with a little bit of this burnt sienna or whatever. Let's see. That's a little bit more of what I want. A little bit warmer. And we're going to come in with a lot of water here. We'll start with this area first. And then we'll just lighten it up as we go up. It's almost no color here. We get more water. And just lighten it up across here. And then we can come in and darken the rest of this. Alright. It's a bit wet at the moment, so we've got to be prepared that it might spread. So let's see, we're just adding some dark right in there. There is a bit of dark right on the edge here. That we could definitely do with more ultramarine blue. Get it right dark there. That's it. Right there, right along there, right along there, and then there's that bit of green. Now, there's a shadow here. It kind of comes right up to the pole. Okay, careful because I want that just kind of went dark. We'll have to wait a bit. Now this gray, we can use this gray for everything now. For example, we have the line, we have to wait for that to dry. Let's start with the gray that happens right across here as the shadow of the telephone pole. Now this is still too wet. I wouldn't mix that. We'll come in and we'll darken it in a minute. That may be a problem. It's creeping. This should be okay here because this is all dry. And we'll have to see if it's dark enough or if we have to make it darker. I've run out of paint, so now I'm just trying to see exactly where I'm going in here in the spokes. I don't see any whites except right on the corner there. Okay, first shadow. Next shadow is this light here that's reflected, and there is a wire actually there. I thought it wasn't. Okay, and then a little bit of the wire across here. Now there's definitely that dark wire. Oh, I missed it. It's a dark wire that goes right across here. I didn't get the other part. Okay. Somehow I missed the one that goes straight across here and joins up with this one on the other side, just in between there. Okay. And this one, we can go right across here. Now, we can also slowly work on these letterings. They are a little bit more on the black side. So how to do that? Either get some more ultramarine blue in there and really darken it with the burnt sienna. That's about right for the coloring. Or you can use Payne's Gray. Use a smaller brush. I have a good tip on here so that it's working okay for these letterings. I may have to go to a smaller brush for the other ones. Okay. Now there is a little bit of some interesting coloring along here so that I can come up a little bit on the wall with just a bit of gray and scraping. We could do that too around here. I can even color it in a bit actually. Okay. Alrighty. Now I'd like to do another level of the gray on, this time I'm just very little burnt sienna or the burnt orange and more blue, and let's see if we can get it a little darker that way. I could also put a little purple in here, I hadn't thought of that. I might bring the purple into this area down below here. Haven't decided. I could even put a little bit of purple there. That's my purple. You know what? If you have the magenta, let's try the magenta. Let's see what the magenta will do. And what if I bring the magenta into here? I like it. Okay, and I'm going to bring the magenta in here into the shadow too. This may be too wet, I'm not sure. Okay, there was that shadow that came down like that. There's the shadow that came here. The shadow that's still elusive from the blue that we put in. Let's drop it in there. Makes it interesting. Okay, that's brought some life to the picture a bit. Okay, so having done that now, where are we here? We could put a little bit of magenta in here, dry brushing it across, and then come back with that gray if we've got enough of the ultramarine blue and a little bit of the burnt sienna. Because what I'm trying to get is that dark right down at the base of the sidewalk, and it's still quite shadowy in here. And then there seems to be a line just along the sidewalk kind of thing. Now we can, it's dry enough now, I can bring in that other shadow across. It's going to need a bit darker, because it just basically comes and follows right up there. This is just ultramarine blue and a little bit extra. Okay, then there's another shadow there. A little bit of shadow along here. It's looking a little bit of purple, darker purple because of the magenta with the blue. That's okay. Let's just add a bit more in here. Seem to be darker. Okay. All right. We could even add a little bit of that darker purple to give some shadow into that salitre area. So just taking a little bit of the magenta, a little bit of the ultramarine blue, and making it into more of a darkish purple. There's a couple marks in here. That makes it a little bit more interesting. Maybe just in here a bit. Now there is a little bit of rough patches around here. This is actually a real light. This is not just a, this is actually a light hanging down here. Okay, because that's the shadow of it right behind there. Huh. Okay, and this wire is going down too, but you don't have to paint that if you don't want to. Alright. So let's do some of this lettering here. Now I do have to bring in a small brush. And I'm going to, and I'm sorry that it's quite a bit of yellow from the light today. So I am just going to take, I do have my gray, I'm just going to take the gray and I'm going to go right in and just fill in some of these letterings. You can decide if you want to just leave the lettering written out like it is, or if you want to bring in some color to it. And I think I'm going to be using this gray that I have, which is Payne's gray, for the bike. I'm also going to fix a few shadows in here and fix that light too, now that I've done all that. Just trying to see if the Coke bottle had any other. It doesn't appear to have really any markings on it, so I think I'm gonna leave it the way it is. And you can even hide a little bit more color on some of this if you want to, just maybe scribble in a bit of, to make it look more like fading letters. Where am I here? Alright, do we need anything darker? Some of this was just a wee bit darker, I notice. Okay. That R got a little bit out of the way. Alright, so now using the small brush, now this is metal, this would be lighter gray. Let's start with the center of the bike, which was right here. There was a little bit of highlights in there where the little tiny circles and stuff were. So let's start with that. There, anywhere here. So a couple stripes on here, I think it was. This is dark. This is dark. You may have to zoom in to the bike to really pick up some of the lights that were here, just a little bit in here. We can use the gel pen on it if that's easier, because the picture, unfortunately, I'm not happy with the amount of lack of detail there that I can't really show you anything. The back seat is also black, and you don't see a lot from that part. There's a bit of reflection around the tire here, frame anyways, and then this seems to come all the way down. There's something on the side here, it's black around here. The outside of the tire is definitely black around there, and then we have the shadow just underneath there. So you may have to do a couple of passes over once it's dry. Now we're trying to see here, this is in between here, there's a few little things there that are light right in here, light, and the edge of the tire is black. Let's try to bring that around. This tire back here that seems to have some distress on it, like you can't really see much. There's a bit of marking there. Okay, let's bring that down. There's a bit of marking in here somewhere. It goes pretty much black right in there. Okay, there's a little bit of highlights in here. Could even be darker than it is. Alright, this handle has a bit of reflection on it. I'm just going to try and deal with that. It's dark here, dark back here. Okay. It's dark along here with a bit of white somewhere in there. See how it's dry and gray, so we're going to have to probably do 1 or 2 passes over it again. So you're just going to have to take your time and kind of play with the pedal and some of the darks that are back here, because there's several different bike parts back here that I can't really identify. There was a chain underneath here somewhere, and then there's the reflections of the pedal right here and some more darks underneath here. Okay, a little bit more. Take a break maybe. I just want to make sure we get that beige in, and then behind the beige is another black and a little bit of silver and then black again. So let's do that. It's a bit black back here, and definitely the spokes are black there. Can hardly see anything. There's some other spokes here too, not sure for what. Let's just add a little bit of black, some more black there. Okay, so let's do those beautiful shadows here. Alright, the first one, it's right around here, and it comes around like that, and there's some kind of little piece in there. Then it comes over, the other one comes around, and then there's another one that comes around like that, and you can see the little bit of in between. Almost even see the spokes, but let's not be that detailed. Hopefully my circles are a little bit better. Okay. And then back here is another little line here. This is quite dark back here. We could even do a little detail along there. I would even do a little bit more black in here. Oh, don't go there yet. Okay. Get carried away in there, and then I'll end up mucking everything up. Okay, now I'm going to look here. I got those two. There's the chain that goes around there, but there's another bike thing behind there, and then there's something here. I'm not sure what. That's part of the other bike. Okay, trying to get that a little bit blacker. Take your time and just see if you can find some of the highlights that you want to put in. Because I think this could be darker, but then again, you want to be able to see the bike through. The bike is the detail. Let me think about that. Let's have a look, because it is kind of shadowy there, right? Okay, so I'm going to lighten my gray up here and then just put a little bit in there. Ooh, that may be too much. There's a bit more pink there than I saw either. Okay. When it's a little too much, you dab it out. Very good. Maybe bring it a bit. Oh, I've got everything off of the brush now. Okay. And just this really nice shadow back there, which I've got too much water on the brush, and that's not going to bring the pigment in. Okay. Now, a little bit of the raw sienna. We have it. Let's just get that nice raw sienna in place. Now it's interesting because there's the raw sienna. The back, oops, the back, that's too much gray there. The back is more of yellow. And it's interesting because I'm not going to put anything on here yet because this is too wet, and it's going to smudge it. See, it's going to take away that wonderful color. Okay, so we need to put some yellow in there. Just looking at those handlebars. I think it just has to be gray, very light gray that we had. You could leave it white, but it just doesn't quite look right. I want to darken this a bit more. I want to give this a little bit darker texture. Maybe even, do we need it darker in the other one? I'm going to take a break for a minute and have a look. Okay, I've taken some time to look at this and let this dry a bit because I just feel that I'm not getting the right purple in here and not getting this to look like a real telephone pole. It's just sitting there. I'm a little disappointed with my use of that small brush to get the black parts of the bike because it just doesn't have that look that it's a bit too chunky. Anyways, I would go back in with a smaller brush next time when I do it during the live video, when we're together. But in the meantime, I was going to show you what I was using was yellow ochre, but I think I'm going to use New Gamboge just a little bit to pop in that yellow at the back here. I think that would be more interesting. The other thing I was thinking of was you could actually use neutral tint instead of this gray to get some of this feeling of the nice rims on the bike and stuff. The shadows are not too bad. I could even use purple on the shadows. Let's have a look with the purple here. Okay, so if I was to take the purple down here and just pop that nice purple in there and darken that up nicely here. Let's do that. Okay, and we had some of that purple in there. Now let's add that nice purple in. It's just not dark enough. Here we go. Here we are. Now in there, now all the way down here. Let's pop it in there. Let's bring this down a bit more and then just pop it right in here. And definitely a little bit darker right on the edge here. A little bit more on the edge in here. Okay, so now we're starting to look a little bit more like... Now, the biggest thing for me is this, and I'm going to go in right away with my burnt umber because I want to get some of that feeling that it's uneven, that looks more like it's a real log and not just a two-dimensional object. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Alright, still not finding this dark enough. Going in with the burnt umber. It's amazing how, you know, because we want it not too dark, but I also want it to look realistic. I also find that this bottom part of the... Oh, you can't see that. Oh yeah, it looks a little bit better in the picture now. Gotta push my computer back a bit. Hold on. Let's go back to the burnt umber. Let's just drop that right in there. Make sure the shadow's there up at the top. And just bring that even further down in here. Okay, and a little bit more down here and on this side here. Now that light standard up there, it was kind of dark around here. And then that was the shadows behind it, so I'll just have to leave it like that. I can't really do much more about that. I can do more here. I can get a little bit more of that uneven dirt on there. Just add that little bit more dark. I was even thinking this is not dark enough down here. And this could be a little bit more on, just, that's better. And in actual fact, that copies over a little bit more of that feeling. Okay. Yeah, let's bring it down in here a bit more. And let's add a little bit of that to the exterior wall. So if I was to do a little bit more here, there's a little bit up here. Be careful because we don't want to lose that white, right? That was good white there. There was a little bit of marking in there. I'm wondering if we should make this not so pink, but a little bit more on the orangey. Let's just add a little bit of that in here. What I've done is I've just added a bit of a mixture of that yellow in there. Yeah, that's better. It's a different pink. And I'm just going to lighten or touch that a little bit more too. Okay. Just bring that down there. All right. How's that looking? Can you see that a bit better? Okay. I almost thought if I was to bring in anything, I would bring in a little bit of Phthalo Blue to kind of liven this up a bit too. Because it just seemed to be so dead with the gray. So your choice, but I would say either purple or blue. Let's pop in a little bit of that to give some vibrancy to that gray that's on there. Right, this is just our feeling, so we can do what we like to make it look the way we're feeling. And let's add a little bit of that in here. There's some shadows in between these little bars in here. So let's pop that in a bit. And let's pop that up in here a bit. Okay. I'm good with all that, although that, maybe I can get it to look a little bit more like a lamp standard. Let's get some of that black in there. Here I am saying don't use the Payne's gray. And I'm just trying to figure out what it is I need to make that lamp standard look a little bit more realistic. It's interesting, there is a bit of this that comes out just a bit that I missed. And it's quite dark underneath the bike there. Is there anything else? You know, the Coca-Cola actually should have some more color on it, so I'm just going to take this, wet it, and then just push it down here a bit more. And I don't see it moving, so I'm going to soften that all up and bring some more color in here. There we go. Better. Or at least I like better, because it's just too light. And then it doesn't give me that color that I'm looking for. Yeah, that looks a little bit more realistic. Looking through there. The one thing that I can't figure out why I'm not happy with this side of the door. Just going to mix some of that color in there. You can't really see the edge here, so I'm not going to start playing around with that. You know, I could put a little bit of purple across there. Oh, not wet enough. Just to kind of go with the purple shadow here. I'm okay with this. Don't need to do too much purple there. But you know, there is that little bit of green, and I was gonna say, I said no, don't do that. It's not gonna match in with everything else. So the only thing I could do is take a little bit of brown and put in a little bit of that bush in brown, and then the shadow there, and make it darker with the blue. Let's try that. Okay, Be careful because I've put the blue in here, put the blue there. Gotta have a little more blue. Because I've got to keep it balanced. Maybe in here. Let's pull that color out a bit. Anything else? Put it in here a little bit. And that would give that bit of reflective color there. Can make this darker too. How about in here a little bit? Okay, no more, because if I start playing around with too many colors, I'm going to be in trouble. So there you are. There's our bikes in Mexico. Oh, you know what? I could put just a bit more here, just to get that color moving down and to get that bit of feeling of the change in color here. That works. That works. Okay. All right. So trying to keep the whites. I mean, I see some variation in the wall here, but I don't think that's going to really help because we've got a lot of busyness right at the bottom there. But I would definitely not use gray as much as I did here. I do like the blue laying over top of it. We'll see how it dries in a little while. I also like the fact that with having the phthalo blue in there, it just gives that depth that I was missing. And I would say just make sure you use a smaller brush on that. I also like it in the doorway too, because I really thought the burnt umber was going to cut it, but it didn't. It needs to have even darker than that. I'm okay with the writings and everything. Do you know what I see that I'm not happy with? You cannot see the depth here in the doorway. So, and that's where the shadow is right in there. So just bring in a little bit more blue in there and over here. Maybe even just on the edge here, because all you see is that line, but you don't see any kind of depth in the actual door. Okay, and what about just in here a bit? Maybe under these places here. Oh, there's a bit of shadow in there too. Oh, and that should come down all the way. Okay. Alrighty. It's kind of light there. Oh, those are some of those markings, but I think I will get just a little bit more blue in there. That'll help. Oh, and this chain. That should be yellow. Or at least rusty orange. Where's the burnt orange? There's a little block there, actually. So I don't know if you can even see it. Okay. Well, that is the image for today. Let's put a little signature in here to make that blue come out. And pop in maybe a little bit more blue there. Trying to get those little shadows in to make it look a little bit more depth. Okay, and there's our bikes in Mexico. We'll have a lot of fun. I will try and show you a little bit more of the pen and ink on the day so that we can work through that process as well, because I just basically did it and then painted, so you don't have the opportunity of seeing that. And talk a little bit about what kind of pens to use, because this is a bit heavier pen than my other one. Let me just see if I can find the other image. I don't think so. No. So the other image I used the Copic 0.1 liner on, and it's definitely lighter. We'll see how it is. I'll show you both of them, because this one is a little bit darker. Because I used the Sharpie. I used the Sharpie pen on this one, and because there's only 25% cotton in this paper, it tended to soak in, and you could really see it kind of picking up a little bit of the fiber in there. Seems to be okay. I'm not disappointed with it. Can I think of anything else I need to tell you? No, we got some of the shadows in here now. I mean, I could go back over here. This is the one thing that bothered me, was that the sidewalk, well, I must have let this dry now. The sidewalk, that's what, if you touch it with water, I tell you. I was looking just to get a little bit darker here to get the feel of the edge of the sidewalk. That's the only thing I found that was not really working for me. This is dry, so I could just come back in here and add a little bit more too. I'm trying to look if there was any, there was a few places where it was a little darker and stuff. You could add a little bit of lines to it. I didn't see, you know, in the post how if you could add more lines into there too to give it a little bit more of a woodwork feel. I tried to do that with the actual paint. I'm disappointed with the lamp here because I didn't really see that when I was transferring over the image, and that there was a real wire going through here. So, because there's a bit of a shadow and the actual wire that's there. And these others are just pretty much the shadows. And then this is the real wire too. So keep those things into consideration. I see there's a little bit of lines there. And a bit of shadow even behind that wire. Which I don't think I didn't really paint that shadow in there. I just left it with the marker. Okay. Thanks for following along on this project.